Thank you for joining me for this episode of God Talk. And I apologize, we're a day late. I'm a day late. This is a one man operation here. I'm one day late in getting this podcast out, but I've been having some voice issues, as you can still detect. I've got a deeper voice today, but just earlier in the week, we've been having our vacation Bible school, and I just started losing my voice for whatever reason. So now it kind of sounds like I'm gurgling something or talking underwater, but better today than what it's been the last day or two. So I thought I would try to get a podcast out. And on this episode of God Talk, I want to talk about grooming, child abuse, and the NFL, and maybe just a few other things as well. We are in the month of June, and you noticed a week ago, this past Saturday, everyone was tripping over themselves because we hit June 1st, and everyone wanted to be the first to get out there and virtue signal everyone who's gay or sympathizes to people who are gay, and just try to earn favor, build support. They were selling things, try to get extra business, whatever it might be. Once again, people were just tripping over themselves to be able to celebrate the month of gay pride. In fact, just as I was going to record my podcast, they were kind of had headlines of different podcasts and different things. And of course, one of them that they're highlighting is pride. It's once again, no one even really cares probably what the percentage of people who really enjoy having this rammed down our throat is, but we do it anyways because we just trip over ourselves. Now, the podcast is specifically called Grooming, Child Abuse, and the NFL. So where am I going with all of this? Well, here's one of just one, but it's one that I would hope society, even as liberal and as evil as it's become, that they would recognize this argument. One of my biggest problems with this whole Pride Month is that what we're really doing is we're normalizing a behavior that is very unhealthy. We're grooming kids to accept, to endorse, to tolerate, and to practice a behavior that is extremely, extremely unhealthy. And it really gets into child abuse. And it's not just me that says that. I think the Texas Attorney General would say a similar thing in terms of how we push and promote, at least he would say, gender-affirming surgeries and different things where we put that on kids where they can have surgeries to change their gender. He would call that child abuse. I would call it all child abuse. Why? Because what we fail to discuss in this every year, and I don't know, like how many more years we're going to be doing this, but we fail to discuss that the people that are transgender and choose that lifestyle, they're not healthy, not mentally healthy, and they have a significantly higher risk for suicide. And it's not just transgender. You may or may not be aware of it, but do some research. People that are gay, guy, gay, girl, gay, sometimes guy, sometimes girl, gay, sometimes not, all have a significantly higher rate of suicide. A recent Danish study showed that transgenders have a 7.7 times higher rate of attempted suicide than someone who is not. 7.7 times higher. And we encourage it. We celebrate it. We promote it. We normalize it. We encourage it. If I didn't say that word already. Of something that like increases your chances of trying to kill yourself by 7.7 times. I can't buy lawn darts anymore because it might put my eye out or my kid's eye out, but we can celebrate something that puts you at a 7.7 times higher rate of suicide or attempted suicide. COVID. What were the final numbers on COVID? Like maybe 0.5% that got in contact with it died initially. Probably even less than that. And like, oh my gosh, it was like, lock everything down. The sky's falling. But 7.7 times normal, the suicide attempt rate, we're going to promote that. We're going to make movies about it. We're going to have clothing lines at Target. We're going to make commercials. We're going to have parades. It's incredible. But that 7.7 times higher rate of suicide isn't just, that's for transgender, but what about gay and lesbian? What's interesting, and I did some research on this before I started the podcast, but what they found is not only do gay and lesbian people have a higher suicide rate, and what that is 3 to 6 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts are people that are gay or lesbian, like guy gay, girl gay. 3 to 6 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. Nearly 1/3 of young gay people have attempted suicide. 1/3 of young gay people have attempted suicide. This is crazy. And every month we're celebrating it. But what's interesting is I found another study that, and it wasn't like anti-gay. It was probably more pro-gay than anything. But it says that gay people are likelier to be depressed, and that they're likelier to have mental illness. Shocking, because when you go against the way that God created and designed something, yeah, there's probably going to be a much higher chance that there's mental illness and depression involved. There's some underlying issues that are manifesting themselves through transgenderism and gay and lesbianism. How about we address the underlying issues that are putting these kids and these adults anywhere from 3 to 7, 8 times greater risk of suicide, or at least attempted suicide? But we don't. It's almost like the liberal left wants them all to die, and so they celebrate it so that more would die. Now, if you want to put on your tinfoil hat and get into the conspiracy theories, put that one in your pipe and smoke it, because that which kills them, they groom them for. That which is child abuse, kind of like they turned the other way with Jeffrey Epstein, right? And all the evil that he did, the left just turned the other way. They're turning the other way on this, but they're not only turning the other way, they're giving the address on how to get there. It's disgusting. The NFL got into, trying to groom child abuse, wanting people to have a higher rate of death and suicide. It used to be the sexual habits of people, like that was just between people. But like the NFL, they've got to promote sexual habits of people nowadays. Well, I'm not really sure what that has to do with football. I don't really think it has anything to do with football. I don't think. But this last Saturday, as the Western world is tripping over itself to celebrate dysfunction, mental illness, and immorality, about 2/3 of the NFL teams last Saturday were right out of the gate, appeasing their gay fan base, because there's just a ton of gay people who watch the NFL. I mean, yeah, just a ton, Seriously, between 1970 and 2010, there would have been zero outward support for Pride Month by the NFL, not really on an individual team scale, and certainly on not on a national scale. Like zero teams from 1970 to 2010 for 40 years ever addressed the issue, nor should they. But somehow in the last 14 years, 2/3 of all the teams are celebrating what dysfunction goes on in people's bedrooms. Now, there was not one team in the NFL this year that said they oppose Pride Month. And God forbid anyone say they oppose it. Unless you're religious, then you can somewhat still get away with it. But I'm sure our day's coming. But even though no teams opposed it, there were 10 teams that remained silent on it. Sadly enough, my team, the Buffalo Bills, were tripping over themselves, changing the color of their logo and doing everything they can. Because once again, Buffalo, New York is really kind of known as a gay capital of the world. I'm being sarcastic. It's blue collar. It's like it doesn't go over real well, like in that part of New York. There's other parts of New York it's celebrated quite a bit, but not really the Buffalo area. Now, they're pretty conservative there. Pretty blue collar. It's the equivalent of the Texas rednecks of New York. But the Buffalo Bills were tripping over themselves along with a lot of the teams. But a big shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers who did not. To the Cleveland Browns, another blue collar area. Oh, by the way, Pittsburgh and Cleveland, blue collar areas. Oh, and Cincinnati's in there as well, the Bengals. Shout out to them to know who their fan base really is and to not endorse insanity. The Tennessee Titans did not have their head up their backside, head up their football pants. The Kansas City Chiefs did not either. I may just have to become a Chiefs fan. I'm a Bills fan. It's hard to say I'm going to become a Chiefs fan, but I appreciate the Chiefs don't subscribe to stupidity. The Denver Broncos, which is somewhat interesting considering that Colorado's become fairly liberal. I'm proud to say, because I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that the Dallas Cowboys did not get involved in the dysfunctional sexuality that goes on in people's bedrooms. Good for the Dallas Cowboys. Green Bay Packers. New Orleans Saints. My goodness, the stuff that goes on down there during Mardi Gras that they tolerate, but they didn't even get on board with this one. That one's actually surprising. And then the Atlanta Falcons. Those are the 10 teams in the NFL that apparently aren't into child abuse and grooming and wishing higher death rates upon the young gay people and older gay people in this country. I saw this article today that got me kind of fired up on this the subject, and that the article is basically titled "The Department of Justice Charges Texas Doctor After He Blew the Whistle on Gender-Affirming Care for Minors." You see, in Texas, that is not celebrated in the same way. That is not endorsed. I mentioned the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, has basically said that gender-affirming surgery is child abuse. Well, there's a doctor that was a whistleblower for a Texas hospital that was still doing these surgeries when they said that they had stopped. And so he blew the whistle on it. And you know who came to the rescue? Yep, the federal government, the Department of Justice, trying to save this world and wanting to kill kids in the process. They jumped on board and went after this doctor, Dr. Ethan Haim, if I'm pronouncing his name right, a surgeon. He completed his residency at Texas Children's Hospital, was accused of HIPAA violations, and has been indicted on 4 felony charges. And Dr. Haim has vowed to fight these charges and suggested that possibly, just possibly, the Department of Justice might be corrupt. He said they wanted to intimidate me into silence using every technique that the federal Leviathan had at their disposal, but they failed. And I love this. Listen to this quote. He says, "The only way to lose is to submit to corruption. It's time to fight back harder than ever." I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. The only way to lose is to submit to the corruption. Like, he could have folded like a wet towel, but he didn't. He decided to fight back. And the only time you lose is when you just submit to the insanity and to the corruption and to the intimidation and to the attacks. Dr. Haim leaked the documents to journalist Christopher Rufo in May of 2023, showing that Texas Children's Hospital continued operating its child gender clinic against state law after they claimed to have shut it down. See, he was whistleblowing because the state of Texas has a law that basically made that illegal. And because he spoke up for the laws of the state of Texas, the federal government's coming after him. Rufo, the journalist, that received these documents stressed that none of the documents he obtained from the doctor included patients' personal information from the clinics. So how in the world did he violate HIPAA regulations when there was no personal patient information that was provided to the journalist? U.S. Marshals earlier this week visited the doctor's home to hand him his summons and to instruct him to appear in court this next week. As I mentioned before, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton released an opinion in February of 2022 and stated that gender-affirming care for kids could be a form of child abuse under state law. And so the following month, Texas Children's Hospital issued a statement saying it would stop all treatments and surgeries on children related to transgenderism, yet they continue to do it anyways. The good doctor tried to put a stop to it. He tried to uphold the laws of the state of Texas. And so the feds are coming after the doctor because he was simply trying to ensure that children were not being abused and that the state law in Texas where the hospital is operating was being followed. One last article I want to talk about on this episode of God Talk, and you probably heard it, is about the Idaho bar owner that created quite a stir that as everyone's tripping over themselves to celebrate Pride Month, he decides to do something a little different, actually a lot different. Because you know what, as we talk about these different things, the question that we should, like, are we going to just complain about it? Are we going to do something about it? And this Idaho bar owner decides to do something about it. What's crazy is like churches don't do anything about it. You know, politicians don't do anything about it. People in society in general do nothing about it. But a bar owner is one who chooses to do something about it. So as everyone's tripping over themselves to celebrate Pride Month, he decides to have kind of a homosexual awareness month in which you celebrate homosexuality rather than gay pride. And he offered promos for people that come to his bar during the month of June for heterosexuals. He said, this is a quote from him, he says, "I was thinking of a way that we could celebrate the other side of sexuality, heterosexuality, the way God designed it." Once again, from the bar owner. He said, so we decided to do a heterosexual or awesomeness month and then launched it. And he said, oh boy, did it take off. Fitzpatrick's Bar, the old state saloon, announced ahead of June that it would be kicking off its first salute to heterosexuality with discounts and free beer for heterosexual men, women, and couples throughout the month. He acknowledged receiving some crass and rude messages online and some phone calls because the intimidation always happens. But he said for the most part, the public's response has been overwhelmingly supportive. He said he had a couple drive as far as 400 miles out of their way to simply come and have a drink at his saloon. And this past Monday, the first Monday of the month of June, was their largest sales Monday in their history. Why? Because frankly, people are sick of having this stuff shoved down their throats and they're afraid to speak up against it. And I love this quote from him. He said, listen, I'm a Christian. I follow what the Bible says. This is a bar owner, which normally you'd have reputation as a bar owner of being a little, on the outer edge of society, a little bit of, as Christians might kind of look down on you or where the riffraff hang out. But this bar owner says, I'm a Christian. I follow what the Bible says. He says, I love people. I love all types of people and everything. But when you love people, it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to get behind everything that they do. I love that. If you love people, it doesn't mean you necessarily get behind everything that they do. Let me take that a step further. If you love people, you don't tell them just what they want to hear. If you love people, you don't groom children to think something's normal that's not. If you love people, you don't sit there and ignore mental illness and depression and pretend like it doesn't exist. If you love people, you don't sit back idly as people are abusing children by allowing this stuff to go on. If you love people, you don't want them to subject themselves to a 7 times, 8 times higher suicide rate than the average person if you love people. And the answer is like a lot of these people who claim to love people don't love them at all. Rather than just complaining about it, let's do something about it. Let's be like the bar owner. Don't be afraid to speak up. Speak up to truth. Speak up to sanity versus insanity. And in whatever way that you can make a difference, don't just complain about the month of June, but do something so that we come up with something better and something different in the near future to celebrate in the month of June. Thank you for joining me for this episode of God Talk. God bless and have a wonderful day.